my name is Ryan Cam, and welcome back to the 1999 Project. We're almost done with the month of March, and next week it's going to be a rather, well, not short probably in terms of length, but in terms of the movies I'm going to be covering that week. It'll only be two movies, but two movies that were definitely very important. It's that one high school movie starring Nikki Parsons from the Bourne movies and The Joker and some indie feature called The Matrix. I'm sure no one's heard of that one. But before we get to our dessert, we must have our veggies. And this week is all veggies, folks. There was only one of the movies that I actually liked. And even then, there are some caveats. But this was, oh boy, this is probably the one that I had the toughest time getting through this slate. So let's just rip the Band-Aid off and get this over with. Let's kick things off with the HBO movie Earthly Possessions.
We need to go forward, though.
Earthly Possessions, starring Academy Award winner Susan Sarandon and Stephen Dorff.
Okay, and we're off.
Earthly Possessions was directed by James Lapine and it stars Susan Sarandon and Stephen Dorff. It tells the story of a homemaker, played by Sarandon, who is kidnapped by an escaped criminal and robber, played by Dorff. Initially, she is a victim. However, she was planning on leaving her minister husband, and so basically saw this as her excuse to get out of there. And so the two end up becoming accomplices. I like Susan Sarandon. She was good in the Wachowski siblings' production of Speed Racer, a movie that not enough people saw. And Stephen Dorff is very good as a villain. I mean, if he's in a movie, he's pretty much going to be a villain. So, on paper, I like these two actors, but honestly, out of all the movies I'm going to be talking about this week, this is the one that I struggle to remember anything about, except for the reason why this woman left her husband. To make the long story short, she left her husband because he is a minister and will not have sex with her on Sundays. So their sex life basically runs on the Chick-fil-A logic. I don't know. It's just a weird reason. And it is a weird reason to leave, I guess. These two as characters genuinely just kind of come across as unlikable. Like, not even in an ironic way. These two were just, like I said, with her weird reasons for leaving her husband and his criminals involving some very disturbing ones, you just got to look at this and go, who am I supposed to be rooting for? Honestly, the biggest laugh that I got out of this comedy had nothing to do with the movie itself. It was a Letterboxd review I read that said, "This is Thelma and Louise for straight people." I've never seen Thelma and Louise, but for some reason I laughed at that. But this movie is very, very, very forgettable. Not bad. It's competent. It's just there. But the thing to remember is that HBO made this just a couple months prior to this movie getting released. A little series called The Sopranos debuted on the very same network. So it feels like 99 was very much a transition period for HBO, going from stuff like Lansky and Earthly Possessions to Sopranos, which would lead to The Wire, which would lead to Deadwood, and on and on and on it goes. But let's go from just plain forgettable to what the hell did I just watch? With Doug's first movie.
We gotta stop him!
All your questions will be answered in Doug's first movie.
Doug's first movie was directed by Maurice Joyce, and this is basically a film version of the Disney afternoon cartoon known as Doug. This is Doug Walker's favorite cartoon, in case you don't know. It tells the story of, well, a kid named Doug Funnie, spelled Funnie. That is not Funny. But it follows Doug and his friend Skeeter. They are trying to find this monster that lives at the bottom of Lucky Duck Lake, because these names were just made by children. Turns out, though, that the monster is real, and so they basically have to pull an Iron Giant, which ironically comes out in 1999, and they basically have to hide it from literally everyone, including Patty Mayonnaise and this one dude named Guy who is harassed by a robot and is green for some frickin' reason. I have not seen anything Doug related. I can confidently say that if any of you are big Doug fans, I think you're going to like this. I didn't. This movie was just weird and boring and just out there for all the wrong reasons. There's barely a plot here, I feel like. It's like Doug and Skeeter, they find this monster, and so they basically have to hide it from everyone. And like that's it. That's your story. And if like there's these weird vignettes where like Doug is like a colonel in World War II in like how he describes his plan. It was just so weird. And I have not seen the show, so if this happens in the show, then fine. But I was just sitting there thinking to myself, what is going on? Why is this happening? And the kicker of this all is that this movie's only 77 minutes long. It's an hour and 17 minutes. The reason why I say length of movies really does not matter is the fact that your movie can be near 3 hours. If it's entertaining, then it's entertaining. See Lawrence of Arabia or Dune Part 2. And it doesn't matter if your movie is 90 minutes or in the case of this movie, 77 minutes. If your movie's boring, then it's going to feel it. See Doug's first movie or The Mod Squad. More on that in a minute. Honestly, I have nothing left to say. This movie is very forgettable as well. This is not bad. Like the animation is nice. I will give it that. It's weird why some people are purple, Skeeter's blue for some strange reason. My one question coming out of this is, what's going on in this town to where these people are just like the color of Skittles? That's what I want to know. But now let's go into easily the best movie I'm going to be talking about on the 99 Project this week. And it's honestly, it could best be described as an off-brand, non-union, legally distinct Truman Show. It's EDtv.
You can't quit.
Ed, you're a star.
Now that's television, huh?
EDtv was directed by Ron Howard. Yes, the Ron Howard you're thinking of, director of Apollo 13, A Beautiful Mind, Cinderella Man, and the Da Vinci Code movies. It starred Matthew McConaughey, Woody Harrelson, and Ellen DeGeneres, which I did not expect to see in this movie, but here we are. And Rob Reiner's in the movie as well. It tells the story of a guy named Ed, played by McConaughey. He has an eccentric family, he works at a video store, he has a very normal life, and so, in a lottery of sorts, he is chosen to basically be the first reality TV star on a show called EDtv, produced by the True TV network. No, not that one. This is a fictional one, headed up by Ellen DeGeneres, with Rob Reiner as her boss. And throughout the movie, we learn about Ed's family, his father, played by Martin Landau, and his very annoying brother, played by Woody Harrelson. More on him in a second. In 1998, The Truman Show came out. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. It's one of those movies that I recommend to absolutely everybody. It's one of those movies where you could come into it for Jim Carrey doing his thing, or you can come into it as something like, say, you can write an essay on it, and it's valid either way. It works across the board. And so, a year later, here comes EDtv, which is basically the same premise, except Matthew McConaughey is not kidnapped and trapped in, like, the dome from under the dome, as far as I'm aware. Of all the movies I'm going to be talking about this week, this is my favorite, but that's not really saying much. This was a bit of a hard watch at times. Again, it was enjoyable in bursts, and there are some good ideas here, but those good ideas are kind of smothered under melodrama and Woody Harrelson's very annoying ass. Matthew McConaughey is the best part of the movie by a lot. He just has this charm that it just makes the movie even halfway watchable. He is the heart of the movie, and that was a very wise choice. I did laugh at the fact that he is a video store clerk, and in Woody Harrelson's only good moment in the movie, he's like, you're going to be in this house, like, reshuffling Ernest movies for the rest of your life. And I'm like, oh, Mr. Harrelson's character, if you could only see what was coming down the road. Speaking of that character, let's talk about him, because he is annoying. And and I get it, because this movie basically, if you look at it through a 2024 lens, it kind of predicted reality TV. like The Truman Show. And this was the annoying relative that was just trying to get their stuff in, like their brands in, like try and make a buck off of their much more famous sibling's name. We all have a reality show where that is a thing. However, man, Woody Harrelson just goes overboard with it and just makes the movie intolerable in moments. Like, for example, there is a plot point in the movie where he cheats on his girlfriend and then realizes that said girlfriend has fallen in love with Ed through the TV show, and he's angry at Ed about it. I'm like, dude, you cheated on your girlfriend. You should have seen this coming. This was literally the F around and find out meme in real time. Generous is good in the movie in her role. I know that nobody really likes her nowadays for various reasons, but in a vacuum, I thought she did her job. It's neat seeing Rob Reiner in anything, considering he was just coming off of his late 80s, early 90s peak. But it was nice to see him. And really, like I said, this movie just feels like Ron Howard watched The Truman Show and said, I've got an idea. It, and The Truman Show is just way better than this movie in every fashion. But as a whole, I'm going to give this a good rating. It's not perfect. I do have some problems with it, but on the whole, this was the most enjoyable of the slate this week. But let's close things out with, I wish I can say, the only remake of a 60s TV show that I'm going to be covering in this project, but Wild Wild West is coming down the track in a couple months. It's the Mod Squad.
Are you guys really cops?
Yeah, you know, we all have superpowers.
The Mod Squad was directed by Scott Silver, and it starred Claire Danes, Omar Epps, Giovanni Ribisi, and Richard Jenkins, among others. And it is a remake of the 60s television show of the same name. It tells the story of the Mod Squad, three criminals who are recruited by a police officer or police sergeant as sort of a unit that they are cops technically, but they have various criminal backgrounds, so they kind of fit in with other criminals. I have no concept of the Mod Squad whatsoever. All I know is that anything mod related I know is The Who and the Mod Father Flash Morgan Webster. That's about it. And this movie was just kind of boring. That I gave the movie a chance, but there is just almost nothing happening in this. like I'm struggling to remember plot details even as I'm like talking about this. Claire Danes was good. She has a thing with a very young Josh Brolin, which that was a shock to see him. Poor Omar Epps' character, his only thing is just to be there and to have his car consistently wrecked in a joke that is not funny, and these writers thought was funny because it happens more than a few times, including a car wash scene, which admittedly is the best part. And then there's Giovanni Ribisi, who is annoying. And really, considering his attire and his hairdo, Giovanni Ribisi must have watched Trainspotting fairly recently and was like, oh, there's my attire. Just shave my head and we're done. The thing about this movie is that the concept of criminals being turned into cops or agents of some federal agency of some kind was done much better in a little movie called Triple X that was released 3 years after this. And that movie is not the best. It's very much in the words of Sean Chandler, a Taco Bell movie. You know it's bad, but you just enjoy it. This was just the boring kind of bad. And I don't think it had to be this way because all three of these actors are talented. They're just kind of given nothing to do. There's barely a plot, and it just really strings along like on this like weird-ish nostalgia for the Mod Squad that exists, question mark? This movie's pretty forgettable as well. So, yeah, I was like spoiled for choice this week, y'all. I pass it off to all of you. What did you think of any of these movies? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to read what you have to say. And like I said, next week for the 99 Project, the quality's going to go straight up with 10 Things I Hate About You and The Matrix. But my name is Ryan Cam, and I'll see you in the next one.